Showtime!
Ladies and gentlemen, please make your way to your seats.
Showtime!
Please make your way to your seats. The show is about to begin.
Showtime!
Let the magic begin.
Welcome back to FutureTech, your weekly source for the latest in tech, innovation, and business. I'm the startup coach, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, John Irwin. How you doing,
Hey guys,
John?
how are you? Happy Friday, everyone.
Happy Friday, indeed.
Or whatever day you listen to this.
We're regularly pushing these out on Friday. We're recording this for those people on the know, December 1st. So our second episode went out earlier this morning. So it's available everywhere, well, not quite everywhere. It's on Apple Podcasts and a couple other places, and it'll be on everywhere soon. It just takes a while to put your RSS feed in everybody and get them registered. So that'll happen in the next few days. But in the meantime, we've got a lot to talk about. On the last episode or the episode before that, I was frustrated. My mouse wasn't working, kept cutting out. And we were talking about when we're going to get neural interfaces. And so let's start talking about them. The first article we're going to talk about is from CNN. Neuralink, the Elon Musk brain implant startup set to begin human trials. Did you take a look at this?
I did, and it's scary. So just as a background for people, Neuralink, they're a neurotechnology company founded by the always eccentric Elon Musk in 2016 and some other neuroscientists. And their goal was to develop what's called BCIs, which is a brain-computer interface. So just, again, a little bit of background. Company's based in San Francisco, and it's raised over, I didn't know this until I was doing my research, it's raised over $363 million in funding to date. Obviously from Musk and other investors. So they've gone through some trials, and now, so the article talks about, there's initiatives being undertaken by Neuralink to implant now, or to do some trials, or I think it's they're looking for one specific volunteer to implant this into a human, this brain-computer interface into a human brain. So after several phases of experimentation. So they've gone through rodents, they've gone through non-human primate animal models that have demonstrated it's a technical feasibility. It's not 100%, it's feasible, which is crazy, of chronic intracortically embedded. It's a flexible polymer thread of arrays, which is kind of cool, kind of interesting, and also scary. But apparently now they've received institutional review board sanction to commence an initial phase 1, which is kind of like an open label, non-randomized, single intervention cohort involving human participants. And the key thing with this one is it's not just anyone. They have to be afflicted with severe or otherwise intractable motor impairments. So like cervical spine cord injuries or lateral sclerosis or anything like that.
Yeah, this is the PRIME study you're talking about, right?
Yeah, so the PRIME study, it incorporates a hybrid in-clinic and in-home clinical care kind of paradigm over the course of 6 years. So like we're still far off from people just going to their doctor's office and say, hey, I need a BCI or I need a brain computer interface. And so there's going to be intensive monitoring for the first 18 months and then followed by less frequent follow-up contacts to assess. So the biggest thing is implant tolerability, functionality, and durability, because you've got this directly in your brain. And the thing with your brain is, the problem is there's no pain receptors in your brain. So that's why headaches are not caused by pain in the brain. They're caused by inflammation and a whole bunch of different things, which I'm learning from this guy, Gary Brecka, which I love. But so this is why it's so critical. That's why brain surgery is painless. You can have brain surgery. You can be awake during brain surgery. And a lot of times they want you to be awake during brain surgery. They're going to ask you specific questions and things to make sure that they're not going somewhere where they shouldn't, which is kind of crazy. They're going to look at how to back to you and your mouse, how to manipulate, or if they're able to manipulate cursors and keyboards via neurally encoded intention signals. So it's like your brain is going to talk to this thing as if it was talking to your fingers, but differently. So it's going to interpret those signals and send those out to a computer.
This all sounds really interesting and cool and scary. I did a little research. We were talking about it. I made some jokes on it before. And, I wanted to make sure I wasn't just talking out of my butt.
No.
And I did a quick research, and I'll just read a couple of headlines to people. I'm not going to read these articles because some of them are really disturbing. Elon Musk Neuralink killed 1,000 plus animals during rushed brain chip experiments. Wow. Here are the details. That was just one article, and I'll put these links in the show notes too, so you have them. And that's from Global News. Okay, these aren't necessarily the Onion or whatnot. From Wired magazine, the gruesome story of how Neuralink's monkeys actually died. Go read it. It's pretty. I'll put these links in the show notes for those of you who want to. If you're easily upset, don't read these. Here are the details on the grisly deaths of Elon Musk's Neuralink monkeys, and this is from The Verge. And he denied claims for a long time that monkey tests were dying, but go take a look at these. Only in reference to one, should we be doing these kind of tests? Obviously, to me, the answer is no, we shouldn't be doing like this. We're not ready. But, we're moving science and stuff forward. So let me take a little bit of that. Who would be willing to, based on these stories, willing to do this to themselves?
Given the background, right?
Yeah.
It's crazy. So here's a question to you is this research, this is just something that I was thinking about while I was preparing for this. Is this research and this advancement normalized because of movies and sci-fi writing and all this sort of stuff talking about this already and showing that, like, obviously using Hollywood, that it is possible? Like, is that why this is able to move forward and people are interested in this? Or is it just, I guess that's my question. Like, is it normalized? Is it acceptable to go through this and kill all these animals? And I guess you could argue progress is needed to be made, and there are sacrifices for progress and things like that. But is it more normalized because it's already been kind of shown in movies and stuff?
Wasn't this the topic of Guardians of the Galaxy 3? With genetic alteration, not necessarily, human robotics, but
with raccoon.
Yeah. So I think there's a lot of long-term issues. We can't do perfume animal testing or makeup animal tests for creams, but we can do this. There's something wrong here.
Yeah. We'll get there, and we'll get there, but at what cost, right?
Yeah, I think we've normalized the idea of the computer-human interface.
Yeah.
I think en masses, we might have normalized that, animal testing is going on in the background, but no one wants to look at it. I think when you bring it to the surface, everybody is upset about it.
Yeah.
I'm going to put the moral implications aside because we are talking tech, because it's not me doing it. I couldn't even read some of these articles, never mind, be involved in any of this stuff. Like the monkey who started pushing his head against the floor. Oh, it's just, but I think we've normalized what it could mean. We've seen superheroes, we've seen, Star Wars, get a new arm, get a new limb, and we're all looking for a leap from using something like this, the mouse and keyboard, which seems like I've got to figure out how to control this device, to control that device, to tell this other device to do something. Really seems kludgy when we start thinking about this is the same technology from 50s, 60s.
Yeah.
Slightly different, got some better resolution, more buttons, but we're still pushing and it's still our hands. So it's a great leap forward to be able to potentially eliminate that kludginess of the interface. I suffer from ADHD. I know you do. I don't and stuff. And we have this chip in our brain. We're trying to write something. And we're like, is it going to throw in all the random thoughts that we're saying in our head? Like, you know what I'm saying? This is what I'm thinking. Like, how?
I didn't even think about that. Like, oh my God, I would love to see what an output from a brain interface in my brain, from a daily output, as what's going, like every thought that goes through my head, that would be phenomenal for anyone with ADHD. That would be awesome.
Because I honestly, I have hundreds of conversations going on in my head at the same time. So much so that oftentimes I have to stop and say something out loud to myself so I can hear it. And people just look at me because I'm like, it's too noisy in here. How would I write anything? How would I get anything done if this noise interface was like all this? I'm a little
ADHD error correction.
So I'm curious to see how this works. We're talking about moving mice. I like the concept of, we're talking about the prime study with quadriplegics to say, maybe we can move robotics and wheelchairs and other things with our mind, and then maybe that can take us to another level. So I think there is definitely, we talk about why we're able to go forward to this. I think, the concept of helping surgically a lot of these spinal and other injuries that we haven't been able to is really going to be a leap forward once we start getting these things going.
Yeah. And who I would love to weigh in on this if he was still around would be Stephen Hawking.
Absolutely. That would have been a very interesting conversation around, what would he like or what wouldn't he like?
Yeah. You know what? He was around when this started to be developed, and I'm sure he's weighed in. And I bet you that they're not, this is just me conspiracy maybe, but they're not sharing any of his thoughts because he wasn't on board with it, or he was worried about it, or the development and how to get there, right? that we can get there. It's just how are we going to get there again?
Yeah, it's going to take a while. And, we see I see lots of potential reasons, improvements, things that we can do, but I'm also scared of the direction in many ways. I want to continue this conversation, but considering our second article is of a similar nature, because it's not just Elon doing this.
No, bring it in.
Yeah. So the next article too is from massdevice.com, and it's 7 brain computer interface companies that you need to know. It starts with Neuralink, but there's a bunch of other ones. Did you want to talk about them or?
Yeah. Well, there's one that scares me because they essentially control the world right now, and that's BlackRock. And that's it's not tech, but they're if you look up majority, and sorry, I'm going on a tangent here quickly. If you look up who owns majority shares in most of companies in the world and who owns most of the assets in the world, there's 2. There's BlackRock and there's another one, and it's crazy. It's scary. So they've got neurotech and they're working with Utah array implants in human patients. They've been doing that since 2004. Their Synchron has garnered acclaim for their endovascular centrode approach, and they've actually cleared FDA human testing milestones. Whereas then we got Neuralink, and it's just crazy. So there's other ones like ClearPoint Neuro, BrainGate, Neurable, and they're making inroads as well. And it does the natural progression of technology. It makes sense that there's not just one person doing it. And I'm glad that there's more people doing it. And I'm glad that there's other companies taking different approaches. So hopefully maybe one of these companies beats Neuralink to a more safer and a more feasible BCI sooner rather than later, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and to be fair, I didn't didn't do a lot of Google searching on clinical trials, death to animals, etc. for each of these other companies. So some of them could be just as bad. I'm not trying to, it's just, it was easy to find the stuff that's related to Elon Musk because he's so popular. Like, it's just easy to find it. So yeah, BlackRock scares me, them and Vanguard and a bunch of the others, that are out there doing stuff. So they've received FDA breakthrough device for Move Again BCI system for immobile patients. So that's to control devices with their thoughts. So that's, again, moving along that line. Some of these are external. I saw someone had a headphone.
Yeah. I don't know which one, but yeah, there's different ways. And like, I know that they do have ways to read brainwaves wirelessly without getting into the brain, but obviously the best interface is directly integrating with the brain. But yeah, there's I know BrainGate was Neurable was the one with the headphone.
Yep. Yeah. And NextMind's been acquired by Snap, and they're looking like they're going to try and integrate it into their spectacle AR glasses in the future versions, their Snap glasses.
And, speaking of them, they use the EEG electrodes. So
it's interesting to see what's happening here. Like, one of these is Synchron, you're saying, which is doing the endovascular. It's through blood vessels, which, I can't even imagine what that, like, I'd have to really dig into that to understand how am I controlling something with my blood vessels now. Seems a little bit different than the neural pathways into your brain. There's a lot of stuff going on here, and like I said, I'm sure there's a lot of research that are happening that we don't know about that is negatively affecting people and animals, so I don't want to just blame Elon for this. So putting that aside, what are the ethical considerations for this? Like, should we just be running right ahead and, I volunteer for a study, or in 6 years, we're just going to be putting this stuff in everyone's brain and they're going to download whatever software they want or music so they can hear it all day long and without headphones? Like,
well, just to speak to that, you actually, there are headphones that use bone conducting technology. So you don't even need headphones to listen to music. So you don't need anything in your brain, but ethical implications with any kind of early stage stuff like this. Like back in the day, I think like when they started doing surgeries and started, like, we're talking years and years ago, they thought that in order to heal diseases, you would have to bleed them out. So they would bleed people out, right? So there's always ethical implications around informed consent, incidental findings, privacy of the data, right? Like so just a side note. For those of you who are looking to get your DNA through 23andMe and things like that, there is nothing in the Canadian government that protects your DNA data, like yourself. So that's why I'm not going to do anything like that until that. So going back to this, how do you protect the data that's coming out of that? Because it's going to have to go through some sort of machine learning algorithm to get things out, and they're going to have that raw data. So, and again, there's potentially changing risk benefit ratios over time that don't even know that are going to be implicated. So there's a lot, but there always is and you can always come back to the argument. There's always ethical implications when it comes to innovation, especially when it comes to the brain, because we still don't understand the brain fully. Although we have our whole genome mapped, we don't know much about the brain, and we're still learning.
23andMe is fully, and those companies fully admit it. They sell your data to whoever.
Yeah.
It's one of their business models.
It is, yeah. And you know what, though? That's what most of these companies are nowadays. Like Tesla, they're not an auto manufacturer. They're a data company. They've got all this data that they can sell and that they've accumulated and things like that. Like all these companies, that's all they're doing nowadays. Your data is a gold mine.
I feel like this and AI discussions are similar right now. We talk about ethics, one, testing, all that kind of stuff, but two, what kind of enhancements are ethical and what ones are not? If I get better vision because I enhance something, if I get better listening, if I get stronger because I put something that triggers the chemicals that cause muscle growth in my body whenever I feel like there's a lot of things that we could be doing on top of just interface. Once we start putting chips in our bodies, do we need a whole ethical saying that what's legal and what's not? Like that, this is where all the other sci-fi stuff comes in, right? You've been modded and not modded, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So there's all that. There's the ethical implications of all of this. There's any kind of enhancements. Like there's cloning nowadays that you could do, and you could clone your dog, and there's ethical implications around that. And we don't know what the limitations of any of this is yet. And I think we're quite a few years away from figuring that out, to be honest with you. And that's scary because there's going to be a lot of death and destruction and things along the path to get to a successful, I guess, outcome. And how do you measure a successful outcome based on the history of how it was developed, right? So it reminds me too, like all these superhero movies and even The Boys, right? Where these kids, they're given a serum. So you're given a serum at birth, and then you develop these superpowers and things like that. And I don't think that that's far off as far as being able to do that. So it's crazy to think what kind of enhancements could be in the future. And even I think last time we were talking about CRISPR and how you could probably edit your child's genes before they're born, your baby's genes before they're born, and give them enhancements, or I don't know. There's infinite possibilities.
I remember the Google Glass experiment, glass holes and all that stuff, and how bad that failed. And everyone had a very strong reaction one way or the other. It's cool. I'm out. I can blog the world or whatever. And, all these glasses kind of exist now anyway, but, they've just gone out of style.
There was a Canadian company that did one recently, and it was really good.
Yeah, I've seen a few companies do them. I even talked to somebody a couple of people who have them, but I just don't think they're being used for anything. The odd YouTuber or whatnot, they're not out there being used. But I guess my point being is there was such a reaction to that. But what happens when we've got, I can not only record signals, I can record video signals or sound signals and send them somewhere. So, and it just happens because it's part of me.
Yeah.
Where do we blur the line between humans and technology now, where if I walk into a room, I can just turn on my PS4 or, adjust the furnace, do whatever without doing anything? Where do I end and other things start? Take it to the logic extension is, at what point do I start controlling other human beings because they've got these implants?
Exactly. The scary thing is we are getting towards this, because look at the digital IDs that are coming through. Like that's a way to kind of track and control. And again, we're getting into conspiracy stuff, but like it's scary. Digital currencies from the government. It's not
conspiracy that it's to track and control. It's the only reason they've come out and said it. They're in the UK, in the EU, if you get anything more, someone sends you more than 300 euros or something, it's illegal now. And so they want to track all this stuff. And so it's not, they come out and say it. We want to track what you're doing and what you're spending money on. And then what we're going to do is we're going to give you money at some point, and we're going to allow, oh, no, you've got too much sodium. You can't buy this type of food today. Sorry. Or you've got this. And So what level of control, sorry, this is government money. You can't spend it on alcohol and that kind of stuff. Some people might say, oh, okay, well, if we're giving you, maybe that's a good thing. But where does it stop? Right. Like,
I think that's what China does is you can't fly if you're there's a certain limitation on flying or something like that based on money or something. I can't remember. I read that somewhere, but there, you know what, bringing the sodium thing reminds me of the movie The Island, where every morning they would wake up and go urinate and it would measure all of that, which I think is cool. I think is interesting. But again, all comes down to privacy and who's going to see that and who's going to be tracking it, and insurance companies. Oh, wait, if I went out drinking the other night and
But yeah, even in that scene, Ewan McGregor, I think it was Ewan McGregor, he worked around it, and his buddy got him what he wanted. You get the fries or whatever, and we're fine. You don't have the problem. So, like, we all know that that's what's going to happen. Say, oh, okay, well, I'll just buy you your meal, and you buy me my meal, and we'll go eat. What's the problem? Like, and that's just at that basic level.
Exactly.
So, but it is a certain amount of control. I mean, and we should be afraid of it. Like, again, the whole point behind Bitcoin and many of these other things was to wrestle control away from governments and financial institutions so that, you know, you could have some control over your money, even though that's a pipe dream and illusion. I love that. I always ask the question, how many unbanked people have been banked now because of Bitcoin? Really, let's talk about that. And, you know, really not many. So we come back to these digital economies, digital currency. It's all about tracking. It's all about what people are buying, who's buying this, who's buying that. You know, when we seen COVID and we seen you're not allowed to do this, you're not allowed to get certain medications, you're not allowed to go out to certain stores, you're not allowed to. You could easily side that with, okay, you've tested positive, so you know we've shut down your wallet. You can't go anywhere. Yeah. So again, that's just an extreme, and but there are people who want to take it as far as they possibly can, and as soon as you let them, they will. And so you have to always be concerned about why do people need to track that I went to the dollar store today, or that I had 2 cups of coffee, or rather than 1, or what is this that you're missing here? Why do we need this?
Yeah, exactly. There's so many ethical and governmental implications to any of this, to all of this data. That's absolutely, it just baffles me. And bringing this back to the BCI stuff and
good idea. Let's get back on topic.
But as we were talking through, it reminded me of another movie, which I think that the ones with the companies who are developing the ECGs, I think could have potential if the technology, as far as the way that they could measure those waves, develops further. But there was a movie called Stranger Days with I don't know if you remember that. And so they put this on the top of your head. Yep. And you could feel the emotions. You could feel when someone dies. You could feel all that stuff. And that, obviously, there's total ethical implications in all of that. At least that was non-invasive, and that was a more interesting technology. And I think that there is potential for that. It's just a matter of. So I know that the reason why they're going directly into the brain is because you get less noise, you get more accurate readings and things like that, right? So that's what I'm saying. I think that the technology of ECGs or measuring your brain waves, EEG, sorry, not ECG, needs to develop further, I think.
Absolutely. And we'll probably end up getting some standard interface that makes it easy. So you just hook up a little disc or whatever, wear a hat, sunglasses, and it connects. Or once we're farther down the road, hey, I sound like I'm a Luddite, and am I anti this stuff? I mean, it's coming, and I can see. I want to be cognitively advanced. I want to be able to go to my networking events and look around and know who everyone is automatically. Have the little stuff popping up in my. Why don't we want these things? I'm talking to you, and I could have my computer scheduling our next meeting automatically in the background without me doing anything. Let's get this going. Yeah. To me, it seems like we're at a line where somewhere between AI and this is going to be the world, right? Where we're right on the precipice, and like there's other, like, the other thing is, how do we ensure like these things are developed equitably for everyone, right? And the thing is I think there needs to be more coverage of things that are happening in the news, but there's just so much going on in the world that it's hard to focus on this, right? And so it's pretty crazy. Yeah, this is another have or have not situation. 20 years from now, when these chips are available, they're not going to be cheap. Yeah. At least not at first. Yeah. And then later, there's going to be high-end chips. You can get the iPhone Max version of your brain implant chip, or you can get the special edition low-end one, that everyone gets. Exactly. Yeah. Equitable. Is it going to be available everywhere? I mean, you have to wonder a little bit about what's it really enabling. We have to sit back and say, okay, are we really enabling, instead of me interfacing with a keyboard or mouse using my brain, or are we really finding a way that people can just dump media directly into our brain? Yeah. And this is the concern, right? When you start saying, all right, well, it's not so much an interface for you, but it's interface for other people, you can't shut it off anymore. Yeah. There's so many interesting conversations around this stuff, because how do you get transparency and accountability? How do you get identity? Are we going to say, I got a chip, so this is who I am? But we also know that we can change our MAC address. We can change whatever. Yeah. How are we going to change our brain MAC address or whatever it's going to be? I'm interested. This technology, I know I'm stuttering a little bit here because I feel like there's so much to talk about that we can only scrape the surface. There's a lot of oversight needs to be done. I'm very interested in what the results of this technology will be, what the real use situation will be. Like, we're all looking for new interfaces, and the brain seems like a huge jump. Is there something in between we're going to get? What happened to the PlayStation Power Glove that everyone thought was going to be this thing? And then Power Glove, and then you had the Kinect.
Xbox Connect.
Yeah, that disappeared just as fast in general. And so same with the Wii.
Yeah.
I mean, people still enjoy it a little bit, but it kind of, it's interesting to see, these are all different interface attempts that kind of worked and people got excited about, but then really didn't. We're moving in an interesting direction. So they've decided to just shove the electronics in your brain versus trying to use any of this motion capture stuff. It'll be interesting to see how does this, when we're talking about motion capture and stuff, Amazon really opened their store in Toronto, I think, which is the no cashier. You just pick up the stuff and walk out.
They opened one up in Toronto? I didn't know that.
I saw something. They opened up one in Canada. I know they've had them like in the States before.
Right.
So somebody's getting pretty close to perfecting this is what I'm saying. If they're willing to open up stores so people just walk in and walk out, they've got enough technology to understand what you picked up and taken to charge you.
Yeah. I don't like that. I don't like they've got billions of cameras and they're using palm technology for checkout and like what are they doing with your palm? And because everyone's palm is unique, right? So
why is your grocery store asking you for your postal code when you go in there and buy eggs? It's all the tracking, it's all the stuff when they're trying to gather as much information on you as possible rather than serving the customer base. It's interesting to their business model changes, right?
And just a quick note on the Wii technology, we're talking about brain interfaces. That Wii technology, when it came out, it was based on decades-old technology. So it's crazy. And same with the Kinect. The reason why I bring that up is because I don't think technology is there yet for us to move forward. And we are still, but that's just my opinion as far as.
Yeah, and we're a ways away from this brain interface stuff. I'm just curious to see if anything was going to work in between. We've seen those projected keyboards on the desk. They never took off. They've seen like all sorts of different types of stuff. It just hasn't happened.
That new AI phone that came out that you interact with it using your hand from ex-Apple engineers. It's like a $700 AI phone.
I guess that's going to go nowhere is my guess.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, just because, again, you're trying these new interfaces and, most of them just don't work. Anything else before we jump on to, should we beat this one to death?
I don't think we beat it to death, but we certainly scratched the surface.
So Canadian SaaS investments rebounded in 2023, reaching nearly $7 billion. What's going on? This is from BetaKit, by the way.
Yes, love BetaKit. They're not our sponsor, but they come out with some amazing articles. They're phenomenal. I read them almost daily. So thank you to BetaKit. If you're hearing this, love you. BetaKit is a website for like startups and entrepreneurs, and it's all about all that and everything around that as far as funding goes. And it's a great source for information. But this surprised me because I know that startups, and you and I both are in the startup founder world. It surprised me because there's always been a lack of investment in Canadian companies from Canadian VCs and private investors. So this article talks about the analysis of capital flow dynamics kind of within Canada's software as a service niche. And this was documented by LSpark, which is based out of Canada. They're an incubator. They're an accelerator based out of Ottawa. The thing is, the reason why it's surprising because like we've been experiencing a steep contraction in private placements the prior year in 2021, where investable assets declined by nearly 3/5, actually from 2021 highs. So we had kind of a huge lull in 2022. It's kind of crazy to see that we're getting back up there, and it's. I'll be interesting to see where the trend goes in 2024 because I know there's a lot more, and you know this too, Craig. There's a lot more VCs that are popping up. They're more specifically focused. Like we got BIPOC VCs, we got specific prop tech VCs. Like there's specific niche markets, which is really good. I'm just hoping that they succeed and that we continue this upward trend for sure.
Great article. I'd love reading more about what's going on with all the other industries, but I would imagine that most of them are starting to creep up again, just because interest rates are going up. It's an interesting market. COVID is, you say it's over and people say it's not over, but we're not shut down. Business is open. There's not these threat of closures happening. So people are feeling a little more comfortable investing. We're still below the peak of 2021 by over 2 billion, but this is a nice positive shift in the funding landscape here. I talked to Matan Hazanoff. He's the managing director over at Burst Up Ventures, and they're still writing checks and doing well. I think what's really happened is we're seeing more money going into individual investments. Because we talk about a lot of this money came out of like 20 deals, right? Versus the rest of it. So we're talking about more investment in single deals, meaning that the low end startups are getting less money, and that's fine. It's just that people have to understand that if you don't have a right traction, you don't have founder market fit, you don't have product market fit, you don't have traction, and you're not selling.
Yeah.
Investors aren't interested.
Yeah.
They might have been interested 4, 5, 6 years ago. They're not now.
And I guess this is my own personal opinion, but it's sad that they have to, that it's SaaS companies that are needed to succeed, because me personally, I hate that I have these recurring payments every month for different things, right? And I remember back in the day, and I know this is the trend this point.
It adds up so fast. Thousands of dollars a month on what? $7
exactly.
here, $20 here.
Yeah. And that's the norm, right? And I think the SaaS is going to propagate into every industry going forward, and I think that's the thing. The one thing I wanted to point out is I'm happy to see that there's a couple good companies that I know of on there. Myovision was on there, and MindBridge was highlighted in there. I'm not sure who Jobber is, but that's cool. I'll have to look them up later. But I'm glad that Myovision's still moving forward, and Myovision, they're great companies. So.
And a lot of this money looked like it went into mergers and acquisition. I noticed that Ontario led the way, reinforced what we said a couple episodes ago around, where the money comes from. So it's like 4.6 billion of this was in Ontario.
Yeah. My question to you is so this happened in 2023, but what also happened in 2023? We had the downfall of WeWork, right? So
yes.
What do you think WeWork's impact is going to have on the landscape? I know it was in the US, but how is that going to affect the landscape, do you think, in 2024?
We've seen a lot of the pump up scams in this industry, and WeWork, whatever you want to call it, was a pump up scam. Pump up the valuation, invest more money, pump up the valuation, look how good we're doing. It doesn't matter that they're losing money hand over fist. So we talk about growth versus value, and we talk about, losing your shirt to take a market. I think you're going to see less of that is what we're going to see. That we're going to see focus on turning a profit and expanding. It's okay if it's just a small profit. How long did Amazon run for, at 1 or 2% because they just kept putting the money back into the company all the time? Yes. How long did they run for that to become, what they were? So I think we're going to see more of that, where we want less Uber, where are they actually making money yet? Everyone says, what a great company. Like, so many of these huge companies in the startup space that everybody talks about are losing millions or billions per quarter. And, when you tell that to people, like, what? Spotify, are they making money?
I think they are, but they're just another controversy of royalties. So that's a whole other thing. But I think Uber's been around for, I think, over 10 years now, right? I think, was it last year that they had their first quarter of profit?
I believe so.
Yeah. So 10 years, no profit, first year profit. So I think, on your point, I think that what the investors are doing now is they're looking at more of a not so much a smart investment, but more around, what does your balance sheet look like? What does your profitability milestones look like, and demonstration of real market fit. So I think that's going to help with kind of showcase our sustainability going forward.
There's going to be a lot of focus on burn rate.
Yeah.
I think that's, what are you spending money on? Are you tight, or are you, spending money everywhere? And we're seeing that across the market because interest rates going up. Money isn't free anymore. You see it in the movies, companies where they don't care, box office, everything. We need to make $1 billion. We're going to make $1 billion at box office. It doesn't matter. And then you got 10 movies in a row that don't, and you're losing money hand over fist.
Yeah.
You've got to change.
Yeah.
And it just happens. You got to change your spending. You can't spend like you used to. You've got to, why did Wish from Disney cost $200 million and Super Mario's cost $100 million?
Yeah.
They're spending out of control somewhere, and that's just an example. So we see it, and everyone can relate to those two things and say, okay, what? How could huge IP franchise you have to pay for, huge name actors, and the 100th anniversary of Disney? Why is this? And I think people really need to take a look at those things. So we're going to see that I translate in the startup world. I'm not giving you money so you're going to go burn it. Let me take a look at what you got going on, because that's what happened at WeWork. That's what happened at all these places, because it was grow at all costs. Yeah. But at some point, unless you start converting it's house of cards.
Exactly. Yeah. And look at all these, speaking of Disney, look at all these streaming services, and they're streaming services that are merging and being bought out. And I think that's what Uber was planning to do originally, was become the one-stop shop or Uber Eats one-stop shop for food delivery and things like that. I don't know where they're headed with that, but I think that there's even these streaming companies are losing money, and it's weird to me. and obviously I don't understand the business model, but you're streaming videos, and I know you have people in the background, but I know you have to pay royalties, but they're not paying residuals. So how are they losing money on this?
Because they have to spend so much money on content. They're spending billions of dollars a quarter making content. And the problem is a lot of them are making really bad content, and they're making huge bets on these blockbuster things and giving it to inexperienced directors rather than making, a whole bunch of $20 million projects and seeing what sticks to the wall and growing. Netflix is starting to do a lot with outsourcing to other places and different models and different things, but you got to look at that bloat. She-Hulk cost over $25 million an episode.
I love that show.
Over $25 million an episode. The original John Wick cost less than $20 million, the movie. Yeah. So, you tell me why they're not losing money, because the thing, you used to be able to make something like that and you'd sell it to somebody, but they can't sell it. So they haven't really adapted their business model. They're making everything like a blockbuster movie that's going to the box office to make $1 billion. But guess what? You make zero revenue on this unless you get, trickling in from your memberships that costs that are going down and down. Plus, they don't know how to make episodic stuff. So the whole industry has changed, because we used to be able to sit down and watch a TV show, and even those are overarching stories, there's a story in the episode that's closed, except for the odd cliffhanger or whatever. You've kind of, as soon as you go to streaming, we've lost that. What we have is a bunch of movie directors bringing their talents and not being able to do that. It's interesting to see how it's changing the industry and stuff. But there's models. Recently, Amazon CEO came down and canceled a whole bunch of projects because they said, why are we losing? Where are we spending all this money? What's going on over here? So they have to start reining it in, these huge spends. They're doing exactly what the WeWork was doing, for lack of a better word, spending all this money to try and grow their business, but it's not growing and it's not doing what they needed to do. There's going to be a mass consolidation, because not only is it too much and there's too much competition that they can't make enough money. As a consumer, we're back to, wait a minute, the cord cutting was supposed to save me money. Now I've got to subscribe to Netflix and subscribe to HBO and Amazon and, whatever. And where are you now?
Yeah, exactly.
So back to investors.
Back to investors,
It's all about that spend, right? And really taking a look, you said, looking at the financial statements, taking a look at what's going on. How are you burning through money? Are you smart with money or not? That is going to be a huge factor with what's going on. Are you taking advantage of your government loans? Are you hiring under, job grants? Are you doing everything you can to stretch your dollar? Now I'm interested. If you're not doing those things, the days of massages at your desk and, all this other stuff, those are over.
Those perks are over, and you obviously you still get them at those big companies like Google and all that, but then you come into work-life balance. But we don't need to get into that. But there's other things that we need to be considering is economic risk. So if you talk about sustainability, finding authentic venture impact commitments that align with you, I think that's going to be a trend moving forward as far as when it comes to investments. And you and I both know this, but the best chance for success is aligning yourself with a VC that gets what you're trying to do, and that can help you to grow, not just give you money, but can introduce you to the right people and help you to scale, right?
Yeah, it's really important to have that relationship, and someone who has influence in the industry, has mentorship ability to help coach you along, and can move the needle for you, whether if you have a product get you in the store, depends on what you're into. I say into, hey, get you into touch with a whole bunch of hotel chains, which will now buy your product. Oh, okay. This is what a good VC will do for you, because they know these people and they have, other people have these connections. So these are the things you want to be looking for, but they're going to be looking for founder market fit more than anything. And they're going to look for someone who is wise with a dollar now more than ever, because it's a risky time. Money is more expensive now than it was 4 or 5 years ago, and we can't take as big a risk.
Yeah.
So, you got anything to promote this week, John?
No, I just I know this isn't coming out today, December. I know this isn't coming out today, but there's femTech, who used to be called, I think, Crypto Babes. They're putting on some events, so I think Craig, I sent you the invite to it. It's tonight, but.
If it's tonight, I'm probably not going. I got to go look at those lists.
I know. Yeah, no, it's fine. No, there's just there's so many events coming up over the holiday season, depending on when this comes out, and there's not really
come out in 2 weeks. So December 14th.
Okay. So just after the final Christmas party for
Startup
Startup
Investor
Drinks?
Drinks, yeah. But you can still go to startupdrinksto.com to get your January ticket, and mentoringmagic.ca to check out what our next in-person or online mentoring event will be. If you're looking for help, check out if you're looking for grants, loans, help with funding, click the link in the podcast notes and talk to John. If you're looking for coaching help, talk to me. Click the link to see the startup coach, book a call. We can chat with you about your business and how I can help and whether coaching is the right thing for you. We got a lot of stuff going on. We've got other podcasts. So check that stuff out, all in the show notes. Any startups you're working with you want to give a shout out to?
There's Lightning.world that I'm working with. They're working on a cool platform, and it's health tech, so that's really cool. There's also obviously you and I both know Emma from AIMD. She's creating a phenomenal platform as well, and then there's one that we were trying to work on a partnership with is OoT Social. OoT.live, and that's Tiagi over there. She's phenomenal. So again, all women-led stuff, and I love it. I love that there's so many of these women founders coming up, and keep it up. So it's great. How about you, Craig? Any that you're working with?
Not any I'm working with right now, except maybe you should check out Mavis. I think they're going to be on the Startup Talk podcast on Monday. A couple of female founders. It was a great conversation I had with them. There's always stuff going on, so check that out. I recently talked to Treble FM. They do AI podcast editing tools. So that's a very interesting company. So I'm always talking to different startups. So I'll plug a couple more at the end of the next episode. Perfect. Thanks for the time today, John.
Thanks, Craig. Always a pleasure.
Wow, that was amazing.
That is all